Hi there, I'm Alessandra Latour, a leadership expert with over 15 years of experience leading teams and developing leadership programs for over 400 leaders. I've had the privilege of designing learning programs for companies ranging from 15 to 5,000 team members, and I've earned a Doctor of Education degree to make sure that all of the programs I develop maximize learning and action. Through the Latour Leadership Academy, I empower emerging and existing leaders to embrace their authentic leadership style, create team synergy, and foster a positive work culture through curated and personalized learning experiences. In this podcast, we'll talk about how leadership can be found in everyday activities and provide practical tips for those who are new to managing or leading a new team. If you're a leader or hoping to be one, by title or not, I'd love to connect, get to know you better, and find out how I can help. You can grab a free resource on my website, latourleadershipacademy.com, and sign up for my weekly email newsletter where we talk about leadership skills, network, and share action-based ways to enhance team collaboration and positive productivity.
This mini-sode covers conflict management, essential for maintaining a healthy and productive work environment. Let's get started. The first question that came in on this topic is, what's the best way to handle team conflicts? It's a great question because conflict is innate in everyday life, right? Every relationship has conflict. Whether that's healthy or not, the conflict is healthy or not is something to be seen, right? But every relationship has conflict. So there's bound to be conflict within your team. What you'll want to do is address conflicts early and directly so that they don't escalate. What that means is that you want to be facilitating open communication and mediating discussions to find common ground. If you are not the person involved in the conflict, you might want to empower your team to resolve the conflict among themselves and offer to be a mediator if necessary. But it's better if the people involved in the conflict talk to each other, right? You want them to come to a compromise or a resolution that satisfies both parties. And that sometimes may be agreeing to disagree, but it's better to get them to that point with each other versus having to mediate. Although mediating, not a bad thing if you have to go that route. What is the best way to handle team conflicts is to set up in the beginning a culture of healthy conflict. So that means deferring opinions are seen as opportunities for growth. They're seen as opportunities for collaboration and discussion, that every opinion or perspective is valued and it's not negatively taken. It's not retaliated upon. It is just merely to make things better. So you almost have to go in with a positive intent to make sure that you realize that somebody's offering their perspective to make something better. So you'll want to establish that kind of culture with your team, that we're going to have these discussions that sometimes might get heated even, but we want to make sure that we are valuing each other's perspectives and we're considering each other's perspectives from the side of the intent, the positive intent side of things, right? So we want to make sure that we're approaching it saying they're not trying to dig at something I've done. They are trying to make it even better. I have a friend, her name is Nicole Haynes, and she always says, make things even better yet. And I love that phrase because for those of us that are perfectionists, it's a little bit, but if you think of it, you think of it deeply, it's, if I want to make something even better yet, how could I be angry at that person? Or how could I be defensive at that person if they're trying to make something even better yet? That doesn't mean that what I have right now is terrible. It doesn't mean it's even slightly bad. It means that they want to make something even better yet. So I love that approach to healthy conflict, and it's a great way to talk about it with your team. So if you're taking on a new team, I would suggest talking about healthy conflict in the very beginning, right? You're building trust with them, and trust leads to good, healthy conflict. But you'll want to set the parameters for that, right? We know we're going to have discussions. We know we're going to disagree. Here's what the guidelines look like for healthy conflict, right? So here's what I hope that you guys will do with each other. Here's what I will do with you. Here's how, as a team in a meeting, if we're discussing something, we're going to facilitate that discussion. And remember to focus on every perspective has value, and our positive intent is that we're trying to make things even better yet. All right, the second question that came in on this topic was, how do I address perceptions of favoritism and ensure fairness? This is a great question. I think sometimes we are motivated to talk to the same people over and over when we need help with something, to give the same people over and over the delegated tasks that we need accomplished because we know they'll do them right? And so sometimes that can be perceived as favoritism. And also it could potentially lead to burnout of those people, right? If you're constantly delegating to one particular person on your team because you know that they're amazing at it, what about their regular workload, right? Are you putting too much burden on them by asking them to also pick up these delegated tasks in addition to their regular work? If you're assuming these things are their regular work, that's fine. But if you're adding to their regular work because you're delegating some things, it can be perceived as favoritism, and it can lead to burnout for somebody, especially those of us that don't like to say no. I'm a well-known people pleaser, so I like to say yes to people, and sometimes that's to the detriment of my own tasks and my own responsibilities. But I've learned over the years that if you can say no in a kind way and give an explanation, right? I have too much on my plate. I'd really love to help you, and I want to give you quality help. But right now I have all these other things going on, and I just can't give you quality help, right? So we want to open the door and open the path for people to say that back to us so that we don't cause burnout. But anyway, we were talking about favoritism, so let's go back there. So it can be perceived by other team members if you're constantly delegating to one person or you are asking for their opinion first, that it might be favoritism. So you'll want to make sure that, if you see favoritism being a concern of some of your team members, if you hear rumblings of that or you notice something, to address that promptly and openly, right? Sorry that you see this as favoritism. It's really because I know that Sally can do blah, blah, blah the best, and I was pressed for time, and so that's why I went to her. But you're right. I should be spreading things out a little bit more and giving people the opportunity for growth or to show their own value. So you'll want to address concerns about favoritism quickly and be open with what's going on and why you're using that particular person. You'll want to work on your delegating and work on your workload dispersal so that every team member feels valued and heard. So this looks like in your one-on-ones, do you really like what you're doing? Is there somewhere that you want to develop in work? Is there some part of your professional life that you want to develop? What can I do to support you in that? Right? That now looks like I'm valued, I'm heard, she wants to support me, and I'm more likely now to feel that it's fair, right? So if maybe she's asked Sally what Sally wants to do for development, and Sally said those things, and that's why they went there, not because Sally's her favorite, right? So you'll want to, talk to your team and figure out where they're feeling in terms of how they're valued, where they're feeling in terms of workload, where they're feeling in terms of where they'd like to grow, and really look at that and think about how you're delegating or how you're addressing the workload or when you're calling on certain people to make it more fair, or at least the perception of more fairness if you already feel you're being fair. Another thing you'll want to do is be transparent in your decision-making processes. So if you are deciding on something and sometimes it always seems like Sally's the one who, suggested that idea or suggested that perspective, you're going to want to give some rationale behind those decisions so it doesn't feel to everybody else that just because Sally said it, you went with that, right? Why did you go with that? Did it have anything to do with Sally, or was it because the points Sally made were points that gave the rationale for the decision, right? So really look at transparency in your decision-making processes, especially when it's involving the group and their healthy conflict and what they're talking about.
Thanks for joining me for this mini-sode. If we're not already connected on LinkedIn, you could find me there, sharing practical tips and insights on all things leadership. And don't forget to grab the free resource on my website, LatourLeadershipAcademy.com, and get more great tips directly in your inbox. Have a great rest of your day and see you back here soon.